Hi, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager.
And I'm Brian Michael. Before we begin the show, I just want to remind you to hit that subscribe button on YouTube and to get updates whenever we post a new episode. As always, this episode we have a little bit of something for everyone. We always say that, but it's actually quite true. We have a couple of new movies, an action film, as well as a comedy. We have an animated film. We have a buried treasure, which is really, really hard to find, as well as an Oscar-nominated film. So let's get started. The clip you saw at the top of the show was for Mission Impossible Fallout. This stars Tom Cruise, a little indie actor that you may be hearing more of someday soon. Here, of course, he's playing Ethan, an Mission Impossible Force agent, and him and his team, again, are trying to thwart evil through different face masks and different situations. As always, they're given a task, and as they proceed through this task, there's many detours and hurdles that they must go under, over, and or around, with lots of espionage and twists. This one, of course, is all of them have some fantastic set pieces and for action and adventure, and this one does not disappoint whatsoever. This one actually had a lot of great buzz going into it, and I can see why. Within the first couple of minutes, it is by far the best looking of the series, in my opinion. I thought it was absolutely fantastic looking. Even the last two have been really good. They kind of meld together in my mind. The third one is third installment has always been my favorite. This one is actually right up there. I was really impressed with this one. Now, of course, there's going to be a detonator that we're watching the time tick down on at the ending. That's common. That's going to be happening. They do have a nice little twist on that I really enjoyed. But the twists and turns they had on here weren't only just because of situations that happened. It was also personal relationships that factored in, and I thought that was really good. If you're a fan of the series, which I am, there's a lot of callbacks to him. It isn't necessary to have seen the other ones, but if you have, it really pays off. And there are some amazing air stunts. There's some motorcycle stunts, of course, and of course there's running. Tom Cruise is just one of my absolute favorite runners, if not my favorite runner. Him and Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford's is a weird-looking run. Tom Cruise has always got a Terminated run, and I absolutely enjoyed myself from beginning to end. It's a 2.5-hour movie, and it felt about an hour and a half. It went by so quickly.
It's super fast, and normally I might fault a movie for that, but in this case it didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel like a Michael Bay film where it's really chopped up.
Yeah.
When needed to, they slowed it down. The action sequences were well choreographed and well paced. One of the big scenes with the motorcycles through the streets of Paris was amazing
and
to
a
watch.
practical effect, by the way.
And a lot of fun to watch. And some of
Yes.
the other stunts. The big airplane drop, which was one of the ones that just talked about a lot,
Yes.
was cool, but actually not my favorite. I actually liked more of the on-the-ground
Right.
stuff. So, and of course, this time Henry Cavill comes in, or I don't know.
Cavill,
Is
yeah.
it Cavill? Also known as the dry, boring Superman, comes in as the heavy, and he's used well here, I think, because he isn't expected to do too much. The fact that anyone thought this guy should be a leading man, I'm just not seeing it. He just doesn't have the force of personality, and you especially see it when he's paired next to Tom Cruise, because there's a certain sequence in a bathroom. Which I don't want to get into details.
One of the best parts
but
of the movie.
It is definitely one of the best
love
sequences in the entire movie. It's a great comedic action scene. And Tom Cruise plays it a bit for comedy because they
Yes.
realize that they get in a fight with this guy, that this guy is way better than them and
of
overcomes
them.
them quickly. Both of them
Yes.
combined. And Henry Cavill's a big guy. He's not a slouch. So, and Tom Cruise just has these really funny expressions that got everyone laughing because you see the kind of holy crap look on his face as he realizes that this guy is way better than them. And so he just has, he keeps you engaged. And Henry Cavill, I don't know what he's even doing in that scene. They don't cut to any expressions of him because I don't think he had any.
Yeah.
So the staging of the action sequences I thought was terrific. The one flaw in the Mission Impossible series continues to be the romance. There was an article recently that said Mission Impossible should replace Bond because it's doing Bond better than Bond. I would say yes, particularly it's in the Daniel Craig Bonds, which I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah.
But I would say in the romance department, if they're going to keep doing that, they need to find some way to find someone that's got some chemistry with Tom Cruise, because I don't feel like...
I think they've done it twice, so I don't have a problem with that. I love Michelle Monaghan's character. I always think that's really grounded, and I thought when they brought her back for the callback on that was really good.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to that bathroom fight scene, and if anyone is out there that is a true Lies fan, that's one of the best bathroom fight scenes in cinema history, and this one is really right up there with it. And I love the fact that the person they're fighting is actually smaller than them, so you figure, oh, these guys are bigger than them. They're, well, maybe not bigger than Tom Cruise, but you'll be able to beat them up. They'll be able to get him easily, and then he starts to beat them up. And I really like that. The other thing about this is that it's actually showing Tom Cruise's age. He's in his 50s, and so he's not the biggest, toughest guy in the room. He's not the one that's always going to win. Sometimes, he has to have help in order to do these things. And the team actually plays a lot more. Simon Pegg is given a lot more in this one for the comic relief, and not just as the comic relief. There's a great fight sequence where he's at the end where a box is pushed underneath his feet. I don't want to give anything away. And I thought that was really good. There's a lot of times I was leaning forward. And I've never actually almost cheered in the theater when Tom Cruise started to rock climb, because I was like, that's right, he can do this. Because in the second one, which really I recommend skipping if you haven't seen the franchise, but he's able to do in that one. And I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I will actually give it 4 stars as an
You're
action
giving it
film.
4 stars?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
impressive.
it does have it may have its faults here and there if I rewatch it again because of some of the, because of some of the plots. Sometimes it's a little harder to follow. But when I watched it, I only saw it the one time. It made perfect sense to me.
Yeah,
I
for
really
me,
enjoyed
just some of the story arcs with the romance, and I do feel like they continue to I felt like they used Simon Pegg much better, but some of the other members of the team, and the villain was, the same villain in a way from the last film, so it's just not that interesting. So,
see, I like that.
So I give it 3.5, but I definitely recommend it as an
When
action
has he
film.
had great chemistry with a female lead that you thought was like, oh, this is it?
Well, not in this series.
No, but what other movie?
Ever? Well, it's going back a few years. We're going back to the 90s, probably. Well, Nicole Kidman, he had good chemistry with her.
Yeah. His wife,
yeah. Risky Business, I don't know. I don't think about it.
Kelly McGillis?
He had actually pretty good
because that was
chemistry.
great
He actually had pretty good chemistry with Brad Pitt in Interview with a Vampire. I think they should bring them back together. That should be his next love interest. Brad Pitt could be his next love interest. I think I would find that more believable than these recent films. Anyway.
There's fan fiction out there. Okay. So let's move on to our next one. Let's look at the clip for a movie, Sorry to Bother You. Okay, so that clip is from Sorry to Bother You, a new indie film that's making a lot of waves and getting some great buzz. It tells the story of a young man who gets a job as a telemarketer where the wages aren't very fair and employees aren't treated well, but he is so good at it that he gets a promotion and finds himself kind of at a turning point, whether you're to take the money and run or to help out his friends and comrades. And then a different movie starts, and we kind of go into some weird places. Now, when a film gets a lot of critical response, ahead of time, and there's some buzz, and this year there's been an awful lot about it because there's been some really good communication in terms of social media, and a lot of those films maybe have fallen short of expectations a little bit, like Hereditary, or they certainly have with something like Mission Impossible we just talked about. This one I really cannot recommend because I was actually quite baffled by the first half of the film making a very interesting statement, and I really enjoyed what it was trying to say and what it was doing. And then the second half, there are horse people. I don't
think you're supposed to. I think you gave it away. I don't think you're supposed to tell people that.
I think that there are horse people in this movie.
Yeah, it's sci-fi. It becomes a little sci-fi. I didn't find that weird. I could tell that you were not enjoying the movie as much as me.
Yeah, because there were horse people.
So what? It was just a weird. So a movie can't stretch the boundaries of imagination.
Not from
I do have some issues with the film, by the way. And I'm going to recommend the film, and I had some issues with it, but that isn't one of them because it just seemed
you
like
liked the horse people.
Well, I found it interesting. It surprised me. You didn't see it coming. You have to admit that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see that happening in any movies.
How different is that in a way from what happened in Okja with the experiments the corporation was doing in that film?
Yeah, but no, that was an animal that was given
genetically altered by an evil corporation. It's not that weird of a plot point. I just felt like, oh yeah, corporations are doing evil stuff.
That just was like,
to me, it just seemed very like a satire. How many satires have you seen where the evil corporation mutates things or
but this
takes
was such a smart movie in the first half, and I really liked the quandary that they put him in. I love Tessa Thompson.
So you wanted this to stay predictable?
Put Tessa Thompson in everything. She's an absolutely wonderful actress. I really enjoy her, and I really like what this. It's a great cast, and I really like what they were doing. And then all of a sudden, it was like, here, snort this, and then what the heck is going on here? I just felt like he didn't know what kind of movie it wanted to be.
I felt like he knew. I think it knew exactly what it wanted to be. I think it definitely knew it wanted to go in that direction.
I can't say that enough.
Yeah, it's got a slight sci-fi aspect to it, but here's the thing: like the movie, I'm giving it 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I laughed at a lot more than you did.
Oh yeah, you did.
You heard me laughing. I thought it was
Yeah.
very funny. I thought some of the satire was so on point. Some of the writing was so on point. However, the reviews going in, I expected it almost to be a 4-star film. Here's what it keeps it from being a 4-star film: the editing.
Horse people?
No, it's the
Okay.
it's first time filmmaker mistakes for the most part. There's some really choppy editing that doesn't seem on purpose. That it almost feels like there's, especially actually in the beginning, I felt like it was very choppy. Almost felt like set pieces. Like now we're in his room, now we're in the office, and the way there was a lack of flow to the way the scenes kind of moved, melded together. Lakeith Stanfield, who's the lead, is
Fantastic actor. I really like him.
No, he's really good, but I didn't feel like we really felt his journey enough in this film. He's a little bit muted, and he's kind of the same from the beginning to the end. And you want that moment, especially when he does realize what's really going on at the corporation. You want that moment where that holy crap moment, moment where they're like, and it almost seemed like he didn't. To me, he didn't react enough. It didn't feel like he was very muted.
Well, he felt that, yeah. That's what I felt. That a lot of it was just internal. That's just kind of a choice, and I think that's the way a lot of his acting is. If you've seen you don't watch Atlanta. You don't watch enough television because you know who Tessa Thompson was back
I know
in the
who
day.
Tessa Thompson is.
Well, not when she was on Veronica Mars, but he's also in Atlanta, and he plays a very subdued type of person like that, and I really like that. I don't have a problem with that style.
But for this character, do you think it worked? Because he's the only character
I was distracted.
He's the only character we're watching from beginning on, and we have to kind of root for him. And he goes from this situation that we can all relate to. You're in your job, you're wanting to do good, you have to pay your bills, you're about to lose your house, whatever it is, and he has this choice to make, and it doesn't seem like a huge crisis. He just kind of just lets it happen. So that part I was like, okay, well, he's kind of a passive character. He's just letting stuff happen to him. But at the point when he goes upstairs and things get really crazy, because this corporation's just a crazy corporation. It's a satire. It's a black comedy. So it has to be. I would expect more reaction from him. I thought Tessa Thompson was terrific. I thought her character was underwritten, though. Again, the girlfriend role in this case, she's a little underwritten. She's the artist, and I think he's poking some fun at the role of the artist and all of this. She's in a very privileged position where she doesn't have to sell out. But I would have liked to see more of her character. So there was just some little flaws.
See, with her, I found because I like the character, and I just felt that it was fully there because her character was written to be smarter than him, and she actually came across as smarter than him, and kind of had her stuff together. And again, it's a lot with the performance as well as the character there. I just. I've seen it. Well, evil corporations. Seen it. But I like the fact that it was like they put him in a situation where you could see where his friends were struggling with this, and they were trying to make a statement. And I think if they'd have kept their footing a little more grounded, because it is an interesting situation to be in. I've seen some of that done before, but I really like this character. I really like what they were doing with that, and so just to have it all of a sudden just go complete. I mean, that's a complete turn. Yeah. I also didn't expect robots to land, and that didn't happen either. So, but that would have made it better.
But it kind of sets you up that it's in this alternate reality from the beginning with the elevator, and something weird is going on in the building because it kind of sets you up for something.
Yeah,
weird.
And some of those jokes go too long. Like the button was okay.
Right. So how many stars are you giving it?
Like 2.
Just 2.
I guess. Yeah, for both the horse people.
Okay.
Horse people.
Okay.
It's really. Wow.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next movie, which is her Fresh Picks. These are where Brian and I get to review some of the critically acclaimed films that came out this year that we didn't get a chance to see on the big screen. And this one is Mary and the Witch's Flower. And it is about a girl named Mary who finds a mysterious flower that gives her special powers for one night only. And she ends up going to a witch's school at the beginning of the film, and we get to see the school. And that's one of my favorite sequences in the movie, as they kind of walk her around and show her the different classrooms. And I made the comment to you, wow, if only the Harry Potter movies had even 1/5 as much imagination as these sequences.
Don't make the Harry Potter people mad. Just say that this is something like Harry Potter and make them want to watch the movie. Because I'm assuming you're going to recommend the film, because I want them to see it. Don't make them mad. We can laugh about them behind
their backs later when the camera's off.
We can laugh at them when we're not recording.
Okay.
Sorry, continue.
So if you're a fan of Harry Potter, you might like this film, as Brian said. The visuals are great, and it's Japanese anime, and so the characters have kind of that same look that you see in a lot of these films. The story feels a little slight compared to the depth and mystery of some of Miyazaki's best films, and and even some of the other filmmakers in this genre, films like Paprika and stuff. It's on the lighter, more PG side of things.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it is rated PG, but you know what I mean. It doesn't seem as spooky and mysterious as these films can be. That said, I enjoyed the story. story. I mean, that just original scene, it almost felt like a letdown after that because I kind of wanted to just stay at the school and
Yes.
have more of the sequences be about
Yes.
that. And then they go into this whole thing where she has to save the day and defeat the witch and blah, blah, blah. And that was fine. But I was like, let's go back to the school and watch things happen there, you know? So, yeah.
You know, there, it's really, it's unfair, and I've had this conversation with anime fans. You know, just really unfair that Miyazaki just has this huge shadow. I mean, it's massive, and I'm glad you mentioned Paprika, but another filmmaker. That's a really good point. But yeah, there are some that are just, I mean, they're just so good, and because Miyazaki just created such an amazing world where you really could just want to follow any of the characters or any of the creatures and see where they would go, and you feel as though they do have somewhere that they go and they live off screen. I mean, it's just an amazing accomplishment. And actually, I was having a conversation with some people. I was like, you know, when you talk about great filmmakers, I mean, one that's never made a bad movie. Miyazaki's, I think,
that
has
we've
never made a
seen.
bad movie that we've seen. So, yeah, and so with this movie, and it, you know, unfortunately, you can't help but compare. It is a beautiful film. It's really well made. It just didn't have that emotional. I mean, at one point in time, it didn't have me teared up or, you know, choked back like a lot of Miyazaki's movies do. At some point in time,
Right,
they
that's
really
what I mean by
hook you.
feeling slight a
Yeah,
little bit more. The characters
it's a little
didn't
bit
have the
lighter,
depth, yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's a 3.5-star film. I really do enjoy this film, and I actually recommend it to some friends. It is available streaming now, and so to be able to go out and look for this, it's a wonderful family film. I always tell people, watch it before you show your family, because I sometimes get in trouble when I'm like, yeah, watch this, and they're like, oh my God, Brian, Princess Mononoke, they beheaded somebody. I was like, oh, I forgot about that. What did the kids think? So, but this one I don't think had anything like that.
I think this one's quite a bit lighter than
does.
that. There's some
You know,
intensity, but you know,
But
it's not.
you know, if you haven't done any Miyazaki, or if you had, obviously we're not getting any more, so this is a nice placeholder. Or if you haven't gotten into it, this is a nice stepping stone before it.
Right.
So, yeah, it's unfortunate that it, you know, kind of went under the radar. Not a lot of people saw it, and so now we get a second chance. That's what we're here for, folks. That's what we're here for you. We're going to help you out, and don't make sure that nothing slides past you, because it's a quality film, and
it deserves to be seen.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, great. Good family film. So, next one, unlike Mary and the Witch's Flower, which is fairly easy to find, this one is our new segment, which is actually a really old segment that we're unearthing, so to speak, called Buried Treasures. This is where Brian and I have these big lists of films that we've accumulated, of great films that are really difficult to find, meaning you're not going to find them on any of the major streaming services or on a DVD service. You're going to have to really look for these. And by look for these, I mean you're either going to look two places. One are in obscure libraries that you might have access to, so that your public library might have some of these. The other place is on an internet site that
may or may not be legal.
No, that is
Oh, is that
legal.
where you're
I was
going?
going to say
Oh,
that has
God.
a red
I was like,
button.
no, we didn't
I was
mess around
trying to
with
not
those.
say the word. I was going to say it has a red button and a famous logo.
Well,
It
you can
starts with a
subscribe.
Y. Yeah, you
Hit our
subscribe to
subscribe
our
button.
channel also
Yeah.
on that same site.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can find these obscure movies on there because they're not available anywhere else. Someone has
The copyright's a
put
weird
them on there.
limbo,
The
so
copyright.
people can
Who
put them
knows?
up on there. Yeah.
Who knows why some of these aren't available? But this one is on a lot of lists. It's very critically
Yes.
acclaimed. It's called The Green Wall from well, it depends on which year. This is one that they can't even make up the mind what year it is. IMDb says 1969. Roger Ebert reviewed it in 1972, so who knows? But it's about a young couple and their son attempting to make a life for themselves in the Peruvian jungle. And it's really focused on these three characters primarily. The film is kind of told in sort of a experimental style of kind of flashing back to see how they got there. We start with the young couple making love in the morning and having this beautiful scene, and then kind of watching their day unfold as the father goes to make a trip into the city. And from there, we kind of, are introduced to the family, see the mother and what she's doing around the household, and the young boy going out, and he's, created this like waterfall with wind chimes, and then we kind of go back to see how they got there. And the father was this office worker in the city who took advantage of this government program to colonize the forest. And he was just people like, yes, I'm going to go out, and the government says, okay, here, you can have this land and you do what you will with it. Yep. And he grows coffee on it. So the style is very interesting. It's, it's atmospheric. It is sort of experimental and a little bit hallucinatory at times, sort of like it might feel being in the jungle, I would imagine. And Roger Ebert named this the fifth best film of 1972, which doesn't sound that impressive unless you think about 1972. And you film fans out there know there's a lot of good films came out in 1972, so that is no small feat. It is a very, it is a very interesting film. I can recommend it. I enjoyed it. I didn't know where it was going because of the style.
Yep.
It was hard to follow. We, of course, didn't watch the greatest print of it. I would have loved to see what it looks like, in a really great print. I'm not sure. This particular director, Armando, I wish I wrote down his name. Armando Robles, I believe.
Yep.
He did quite a few films, and there's another one of his that's
Yeah.
also on a list that's even harder to find.
Yes.
So what did you think?
Yeah. So the quality that we watched wasn't necessarily the best because a couple times there was a sound design problem, or maybe it was the choice, and so it was kind of odd there.
We couldn't tell.
It does. Well, it does kind of lull you in. It has a nice pacing, and sometimes when you watch some of those films, you kind of have to. You can't go from Mission Impossible and to watch something like this. You can go the other way around, and it might terrify you, but you kind of have to just be in that mindset. And this film just kind of lulls you into its pacing.
We were in a good spot when we watched it, though.
Exactly, and it did a great job of establishing the family and the boy and their their relationship with one another and their love for one another. And so when tragedy strikes, and this someone is bitten by a snake, and so we've got to rush somebody off into the hospital, there is a great sense of urgency. We certainly were immediately worried because we really cared about these people. And a lot of times you don't get that in a movie because it's they're going to live, or they're like Tom Cruise he'll get up and dust himself off. It's fine. But in this film, yeah, it takes its time. It's really weird to say that it feels like experimental. It's not. It just kind of takes its time. It builds this, shows this wonderful
narrative is a little
house.
chopped up.
Well, it is, but I mean, it's just.
It's not super experimental.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the sound, which I wasn't sure whether it was experimental or not.
Yeah, it's a beautiful looking film. At least the print that we saw, it really transports you to a place and a time and within the family context. And I really like that when we flash back to him and his struggles being in the big city. We understand that and we see where they've come and what they were doing there. So it's a wonderful film. It almost, practically could be silent. I mean, there could be.
Oh yeah, there's not
really,
very much. It's a
there's
little
not
bit
a lot
of dialogue,
dialogue,
but it's really minimal. You kind of get the sense of what's going on even without it.
And that says a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah,
So
no, I
thought it was a
definitely recommend it. I'm
beautiful
glad
film.
we finally got to see it. I'm really excited.
Yes, that has been on my
it's
list
hard
for
to
a
find,
long
guys, but if
time.
you can find it out there at your local library or hunting around out there, we recommend it.
Yeah,
for sure.
and share with us if you're able to find it somewhere, or if someone maybe there's a way to stream it, or if there's something that way legally, and that we can
yes.
share with the rest of y'all. Well, we'll certainly do that, and we'll read it on the air. That would be wonderful, so we can help everybody out.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, and we're back to me. So we're going to go into our next segment, which is Oscar-nominated films. It's just a list of movies we want to see that happen to be nominated. We just figured we'd call it that. And this one's a Western. Yes. Or as Brian likes to call it, a win. And this is One-Eyed Jacks. This stars Marlon Brando and Carl Malden, and it's directed by Marlon Brando. The only film he ever directed. Guess why? Marlon Brando is a fantastic actor, but we know that as his waistline got bloated, so did his ego, and he kind of just did whatever he wanted. This movie went on and on and on, and in terms of budget and in terms of running time, until the studios kind of take it away from him and put this thing together. It's a beautiful looking film at times. I really enjoyed some of the set pieces as him and Carl Malden play a couple of bank robbers who are then get cornered. Carl Malden's allowed to escape to help to bring back horses so Marlon Brando can escape, and he decides not to. Marlon Brando goes to prison. Once he gets out, he looks for Carl Malden, who has become, you guessed it, a sheriff in a small town with a very attractive daughter. So
there must be a very attractive daughter.
Must be a very attractive daughter because Marlon Brando finds her attractive. And there are so many great moments in this movie that I really liked what he did. And I don't know if it's because of his directing choices or it's because of Brando the actor. So it's kind of interesting that some of them, because the opening scene is certainly very memorable. There's a great shootout with the dust. I thought was really good because actually when I made fun of it.
You made fun of it though. You're like, we can't see what's going on.
So we can't see what's going on. No one would do that. But then later on, that's an asset when they're actually being shot at and hiding out. And so I thought, oh, okay, all right. He knew what he was doing.
It's also kind of realistic. There would be a lot of dust. So
sure.
You're not just used to seeing that kind of realism in Western. So you're recommending it?
Oh, yes.
I'm so conflicted about this. On one hand, I think this movie is kind of a hot mess.
Yeah.
And so part of me thinks, can I really recommend it? On the other hand, I would recommend it for people, especially fans of Brando or Westerns, but it's just so interesting because it's such an odd mix. Carl Malden, who is such a modern actor in a Western, and he's really out of place at the beginning of the film when they're outlaws, because he just doesn't really look like he could get around enough to be an outlaw. He's kind of chunky for an outlaw. But anyway, he's also he doesn't fit.
He's got a nice face.
But when he comes to be the sheriff, he works, because he's kind of this underhanded sheriff character, and he works But I've never seen so much eating in a Western. And I commented on to you multiple times. American movies in general are known for not having a lot of eating or food scenes. They are literally eating something in almost every other scene. He's either gnawing on a chicken leg or scooping up some beans. Or I was like, Brando was well fed throughout the making of this movie. The original movie was supposed to be directed by Stanley Kubrick and written by Peckinpah. And I want to see that movie still. I wish can we get a time machine and go back in time and have them
that's
make
a great what
and
if.
just put him let Brando still make his, but let's also watch the version directed by Kubrick and written by Sam Peckinpah. Don't you want to see it? When I saw that on the internet, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, but I want to see Kubrick direct Brando and go, oh, take 15, and Brando's gonna go, no. I want to be a sandwich.
Yeah,
I'll play a
well, they
gold
said that
suitcase.
I can imagine that's one of the reasons it wouldn't work out between Kubrick and Brando, because Brando probably wouldn't have done more than a couple of takes. But it was nominated for Best Cinematography for an Oscar, and the cinematography is really good, and I did enjoy it. It was entertaining. We had a lot of fun watching it. I think for fans of Brando or Westerns, I could recommend it. Some of the sequences are a little cheesy. All the other actors, and I'm sorry I didn't write down the female leads, I thought were very effective, particularly the woman who plays Malden's wife, who we've seen in quite a few other films, and she's very good.
She's always really good. No, I recommend it. What would you give it then?
I'm giving it 3 stars.
3 stars. That's
yeah, it's right on the yeah, but definitely not a masterpiece.
So, Mission Impossible, we both can recommend. I highly recommend. Sorry to bother you.
I recommend.
Horse people. I'm telling you.
If you like something interesting that's not predictable, this is the movie for you.
There you go. And I just wrote Mary and the Witch's Flower. Oh, there we go. I remember the title's name. We both can recommend. We both highly recommend the Green Wall, as well as recommend the One-Eyed Jacks. As you can always like us on Facebook, of course, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter. You can listen to us on KMUZ. You can watch us in Corvallis, as well as Salem and Silverton. We want to thank our wonderful sponsors, our hardworking crew, and of course, I always want to thank my wonderful co-host. And we always want to thank you for watching. Have a great day and great movies.